Hi everyone, this is the second video of Lecture 9, and this will be the last video of discourse. On one hand, this video will have several difficult series, so I'll do my best. In the previous video, we ran the framework for successful government contracts identified by Brown 2006. The third dimension was service markets. In this dimension, the main task of public monitor is to minimize contractor opportunism. According to economic theory, high transaction cost, limited information, uncertainty about the future will lead to high levels of contractor opportunism. Here we'll run the details of the economic theory. The issue of contractor opportunism in contract was raised by an economic model of contract called principal-agent model. So we call the overall framework including contractor opportunism as principal-agent problem. The principal-agent model explains that in a contract relationship, the contractor, viewed as an agent, typically has more information about service operation and its own capacity than the government, who is a principal in the contract. The model identifies this information asymmetry between government, principal, and contractor, agent as specifically by utilizing this information advantage that principals cannot fully know what contractors do or what they can do. Self-interested agents, contractors, will replace organizational goals with their own benefits, including being lazy. To be worse, they may cheat performance data to pretend to achieve the goals and gain benefits. Please note that this series is based on public choice assumption that all human behavior is based on self-interest. Further, economic theory explains that contractor opportunism is more likely to happen when the services being contracted have high transaction cost. So in the next slide, we'll run two service characteristics which lead to high transaction cost: asset specificity and service measurability. The first service characteristic that affects transaction cost is asset specificity. Asset specificity is specialized investments that are applicable to only one service, but are very difficult to adapt for other services. Examples are power plant or water treatment facilities. Actually, power plants cannot be used for other services, including transportation and medical service. So we can say power plants are asset specific. In this slide, we'll run why asset specificity will lead to high transaction cost. Asset specific service might create monopoly conditions. In the case of power plant, once a profit organization gets a contract of operating the power plant, other profit organizations cannot really know how to operate it and how much cost they need. So the first winner of the bidding can keep the contract due to their information advantage over other rivals. As a consequence, in the absence of competition in asset-specific service, the contracting might just mean transfer of monopoly power from public to private. A monopoly, whether it is public or private, is costly and inefficient. Without any rivals, monopoly suppliers might charge higher prices on customers or clients. Furthermore, government will face increased cost of negotiating contracts with the monopoly supplier. For instance, after several biddings, most profit organizations other than current contractor will give up getting the contract of power plant. At this stage, government also doesn't know how to operate the plant and how much cost the plant requires, since the government already contracted that asset-specific service out several years ago. By utilizing such information advantage over the government, principal, self-interested monopoly supplier, agents, tries to increase their benefits in the negotiation of contracts. The second service characteristic that affects transaction cost is service measurability. As we learned, Without clear performance indicators such as profits in private organizations, it's quite difficult to measure government performance. This means that due to difficulty of measuring performance, public managers, principals cannot know the productivity of contractors' agents. Under such weak monitoring, self-interested contractors will have strong incentive to replace organizational goals with their own benefits, including being lazy or shirking, and they might cheat performance data to minimize their efforts and gain benefits. The traditional response of government to such contractor opportunism, led by asset specificity and difficulty of measuring performance, is more rules, more detailed targets, investigations, intensive monitoring. But these actions definitely will increase transaction cost. So the main task of public managers in service market is to judge whether the service for contracting out is asset specific or whether that service is measurable. On one hand, our course reading, America-Harnigan 2012, counters such traditional government response to contractor opportunism, such as intensive monitoring, by proposing collaborative contracting. They argue that transaction cost economics, including principal-agent model, largely overstates the role of self-interested, rationally controlled behavior based on public choice assumption. Unlike hierarchical principal-agent relationship, the government and the contractor in a trust-based collaborative contracting are conceptualized as equal partners. In other words, in this collaborative contracting, the solution for contractor opportunism is to develop the trust between government and the contractor. To develop the trust, collaborative contracting will have such features as long-term contracts rather than short-term, decentralization and flexibility instead of intensive monitoring, and common professional standards instead of strict performance criteria. Here, I really want you to remember Lecture 5, Theory X and Theory Y. In that lecture, I identified principal-agent model as a modern version of Theory X. Also, I identified this kind of theory based on trust or public service motivation as a modern version of Theory Y. So you might check them. Further, America-Harnigan 2012 identifies positive factors and negative factors for collaborative contracting based on the empirical evidences. Here, I don't go for the details, mainly because their empirical evidences come only from child care centers in Ohio, so we cannot generalize these results for other services such as security service or transportation services. But it's interesting to know that contract specification is positively associated with higher degrees of collaboration in contracts of childcare services. This implies that a clear goal of service will help government and contractor work together. We've just covered series of contracting out that is quite popular, especially in the US. But there can be other forms of relationship between government and private or non-profit organizations in public good and service provision. One of them is public-private partnership. Actually, as the course reading for 2010 describes, this is a traditional form of the relationship between government and private sector, especially in infrastructure projects. The main distinction between contractual relationship and public-private partnership is ongoing agreements. This means long-term relationship rather than short-term. And further, as a partner, private organization will participate in not only production of public goods and services, but also in decision making. On one hand, in a contracting out approach, government will decide the terms and conditions for public service production and delivery. But the expected benefits of public-private partnership (PPP) are quite similar to those of contracting out. Here, please note that private organizations might not be service providers in PPP. Government might provide public service based on the advice of private partners. In such case, PPP is expected to bring increased quality through innovation and technical efficiency. The point here is that partnerships have more multiple forms than contracts. For instance, government can have a partnership with non-profit organizations rather than private organizations. Also, they can have a partnership with multiple partners. First, in a PPP, a private partner might be responsible for allocating financial resources to other partners. Beyond such strengths of flexibility in partnership, however, diffuse responsibilities between government and multiple partners has been identified as a main issue of PPP. So, according to the course reading, the main task of public managers is to secure public accountability. FOIL 2010 identifies 6 key dimensions of securing public accountability in PPP. First, risk. Unfair risk allocation will lead to conflict between government and other partners in the future, so public managers should be careful for designing risk allocation at the first stage of building PPP. The second key dimension is cost and benefits. Since public-private partnership is a relatively long-term relationship, public managers should make cost-benefit analysis at each stage of project, such as bidding, operation, and maintenance. Such cost-benefit analysis requires public managers to consider not only production cost, but also opportunity cost of selecting partners and life cycle cost in a long-term relationship. The third key dimension is social and political impact. Public managers should be careful about the reputation of their projects among citizens, politicians, and other stakeholders. Without meeting the expectation of the public managers cannot achieve a high level of public accountability. The fourth dimension is expertise. Public managers should carefully select the private partners who have appropriate knowledge and skills for PPP projects. The fifth key dimension is partnership collaboration. Higher degrees of human connection in PPP will lead to the success. The course reading identifies the key 4 elements for collaboration in PPP. First, effective leadership. Second, communication among stakeholders. Third, effective project management, including clear goals and incentive structure. And finally, trust between partners. The final key dimension of securing accountability in PPP is performance measurement. If public managers can set balanced performance measures for PPP, it will increase the probability of securing public accountability. Finally, we came to the end of this course, while we have Lecture 10 as an option. First of all, I really appreciate for your time and effort to listen to my video lectures. I recognize my explanation sometimes are not strong enough to increase your understanding, but I try to do my best. I sincerely hope that this lecture will help you increase your power as an expert, and further hope that you will appreciate the knowledge you gain in this lecture in the future. Thank you so much.